suggesting that the table never lies, but one thing I think we'll all accept is that results sometimes don't tell the truth, not the whole truth, and that's the point you were making there, Nicky, about the result, the 3-1 defeat of Roma by Milan. It's a similar situation, or kind of similar situation, at the top of the Bundesliga, where you have two teams vying for the title, primarily Bayern Munich and Leverkusen. They both win. And Bayern beat Holstein Kiel 4-3. Leverkusen beat Hoffenheim 3-1. And yet it feels, Andy, like that was a result for Leverkusen, but not a result for the league's leaders, Bayern Munich. Why is that?
You're right. It's so strange, the fact that Leverkusen have made up no ground, but it feels as if they've made up some sort of moral ground, and this could be the next part of the title race, because 6 points is a gap. 6 points is a gap that needs to be diminished, particularly when you look at the fact in 10 days Bayern go to Leverkusen, and Leverkusen definitely can't afford to lose that in the Bayer Arena, by the way. But
Bayern can. They can afford it, can they? Can they afford to lose?
Well, they'd still be out in front. I mean, I think
only 3 points in front.
Yeah, but what happened, I think, with this game at more or less the same point last season, where Leverkusen thrash them really 3-0 at the Bayer Arena. That is a game where it started to be taken away from Bayern. So psychologically, it would be a massive blow if Leverkusen were to go and win this. But look, this is a little way in front. They've got to keep winning in the meantime, and they both did last weekend. But Bayern were 4-0 up against Holstein Kiel, arguably the worst team in the division, although Bochum might have something to say about that. But they were 4-0 up, and you know the level of carelessness, I suppose, really annoyed Vincent Kompany, because he's really taken pride in the fact that not a lot of people would have picked it. He has been the man who's fixed their defence. They've had defensive problems for a number of years that have undercut Nagelsmann and Tuchel, and Kompany has made a massive step towards sorting it out. And this was bad old Bayern not nodding off. Now, on the other hand, Leverkusen, that little bit more dogged. They beat Hoffenheim, who are not having a good season either, 3-1. They're 3-0 up, but they go through the last 30 minutes or so of that with 10 men after Alex Grimaldo gets a second booking. And the fact that they show the two halves of themselves in the same game, that they show their attacking power, their attacking quality, and when they need to drop and dig in, they can do that as well. That's really impressive. And as a little coda to that, if we're trying to get the Leverkusen vibes from last season back, in the DFB-Pokal, the German National Cup competition this week, they're 2-0 down at home to their second-tier rivals, Köln, who are having a really good season and look like they're going to come straight back up. But they're 2-0 down to them. They take it into extra time when Patrick Schick, who always gets late goals, gets a 96th minute equaliser, and then they beat them in extra time. And it's funny, I remember the last season speaking to Lucas Hradecky about this and speaking to Jeremy Frimpong about this, and Hradecky saying to me, logically, we shouldn't be able to get these late goals all the time. It shouldn't be able to happen. And Frimpong saying to me, well, yeah, but the fact is, the more you do it, the more you feel you're going to do it. Yeah. It's like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And they did that all over again. And I think the timing with which that's happened is just such an enormous confidence booster for them.
I think that's exactly it, isn't it? When we're talking about why does it feel like something's changed, it's in the end, it's because of narrative. It's because we have stories that we tell ourselves, and the story that we tell ourselves about Bayer Leverkusen is that they don't understand when they're beaten. They find a way of digging out the result from nowhere, and they're behind. They're being behind in the league table is much like they're being behind in a game. Okay, yeah, they're behind, but we're not in the 96th minute yet. And so you expect something to happen. You expect them to drag it back. And it puts me in mind a bit of as an analogy of when Jose Mourinho would talk about to his players, I think it's more early in his career, he's talking about, you don't want to have the ball because the person who's got the ball's got the fear. When you've got the ball, you've got the fear, and Bayern Munich have the ball, right? They're
that explains a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, but Bayern Munich have got the fear right now because they know they've got Leverkusen behind them, and they know it's in their control. Like if Munich win all their games, they win the league. They could even lose to Bayern Leverkusen and win the league if they win every other game.
Yeah, just like you were saying. Yeah,
but if you slip, if you make that misstep, like you nearly did blowing a 4-goal lead, then you've got this team. And the thing is that, exactly as Andy's just talked about, how much of that is real and how much of that is the stories we tell ourselves? Because actually what happened last night, to frame it another way, and I know Andy's just framed it with more detail and pointing out that Köln are playing very well in the second tier. But what happened last night actually is that Bayer Leverkusen beat a team from the tier below in the cup. Like that's not actually a headline, is it?
And it would have been massively embarrassing to lose to a team that 15 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
And perpetually, well, they think they're a bigger club than them. Well, Köln are a bigger club.
Yeah.
You know, they're not a bigger team at the moment, but traditionally they're a bigger club. So this would have been like humiliating, really, for Leverkusen. It would have put a dent in their season, especially when you look at the field in the Pokal. The fact that you got no Bayern in there because Leverkusen knocked them out in the previous round. You've got no Dortmund in there. You know, this should be Leverkusen's Pokal all over again. So it's kind of different scenario to the league where it's, even though they're the champions, it doesn't feel so much like theirs to lose.
But the League one is intriguing, not least since Nicky brought in this, we're not in the 96th minute yet. At what point do we get to the 96th minute? And at what point do you expect, if Leverkusen are going to make a serious bid to challenge for the Bundesliga, we'll see things turning around? And will it be mental? Will it be psychological, that 96th minute, or will it be actually in terms of playing on the field?
Well, I think so much of it depends on that result against Bayern coming up. But I think seeing them manage the situations they have during the transfer window, we talked about how, you know, and you talk about the 96th minute of it. And I think that is important. But how they're managing tricky personnel situations is quite reflective of last season. So if you go to this point last year, they've got no fit strikers, really, because Victor Boniface is going off to play African Cup of Nations with Nigeria. He gets a thigh injury as well that not only puts him out of AFCON, but puts him out for nearly 4 months. So that's a huge problem for them. And this year, it looks like they're going to have to do without Boniface as well if we go back a week and a half, because they agree a deal to sell him to Al Nassr, which the club are happy with. And Fernando Caro, the CEO of the club, Spanish CEO of the club, has always said, look, our model, we have to sell one big player a year. And I mean, this is big. They're selling Boniface to Al Nassr, it looks like, for 70 million euros. And then it turns out, and Leverkusen and their sporting director Simon Rolfes are aghast to find out that he's only ever the second choice because they want to sign John Duran from Aston Villa. And when that works out, well, Leverkusen are left hanging in the wind. Boniface, who was very happy with the wage package he was going to receive, is left hanging. But how do they react to that? Under Xabi Alonso, there's no moaning. There's no, we've got this difficult thing to cope with at the moment. It's like, let's just get on with it. And that's, I think, where his personality hits and gets into every point of the club. So at management level, at coaching level, at board level, at player level, all of it, there's no excuses. Let's just get on with it. Boniface starts the game, and I think, actually, Alonso plays this really well because Schick has been playing all the time, which is one of the reasons they're happy to lose Boniface. And Patrick Schick is on an absolute tear at the moment. And yet what he does for the Hoffenheim game is he goes, okay, well, I'm going to put in Boniface ahead of him. What's he do? Scores a brilliant goal straight away, and it's all sweetness and light. Mm. And then later he brings on Schick and he scores immediately after coming on. And then after Schick has scored his 2 goals against Köln to take it into extra time, who comes on and scores the winner? Victor Boniface. And so this, which could be a really awkward, thorny situation, is already done and everyone's happy.
I was thinking about this, though. Do you think, like, to some extent, actually what's happened is like, you could not have scripted this better if you're at Leverkusen, because if Leverkusen resist that bid, if they turn around and say, no, it's the middle of the season, we don't want to let you go, we don't want to let this turn to happen, then you create a situation where the player can feel a grievance against you. The Boniface can be feeling, well, that's not fair, I wanted that move, that was a big opportunity for me and you've denied me it. That isn't what happened. Leverkusen said, no, we understand it, the price is right, we'll let you leave. And then because Al Nassr turn around and go, actually, no, we're going to sign Duran instead, and that deal's what we want. When Boniface comes back to Leverkusen, he has no reason to be angry at Leverkusen. He has no reason to feel aggrieved.
Yeah, that's true.
And so in some ways, because for sure they didn't want to lose him in the middle of the season, they wouldn't have been able to replace him with someone as good as that in January. So in some ways, it's as well as this could have played out for them.
Maybe, but I think the fact that they were publicly, they were publicly quite happy for him to go, for him to be that big sale, because he wasn't in the 11 at the moment, because realistically, you're looking at a guy in his mid-20s who missed a massive chunk of last season and has had 2 ACL injuries before he even turned up at Leverkusen. So that opportunity for him to be your big sale, and it not to be, say, Florian Wirtz, for example.
And he wanted it as well. He wanted it. He wanted the deal to go through.
Yeah, it's true.
But it's January. It's the middle of the season. It would be better for them to do a deal in the summer.
Yeah, it would. And look, maybe he does end up going to the Saudi Pro League. I don't think it's completely off the table, whether it's to Al Nassr or to another club in the future. But I think, especially after Simon Rolfes went on TV in Germany after the final Champions League game, like by now aware for a couple of hours that it was falling apart and Al Nassr were taking Duran instead. And he had this like hangdog expression on his face, and he was like, yeah, it doesn't look like it's happening. we're not getting our money.
But there's another layer to this, which is, I don't want to make assumptions on behalf of Victor Boniface. He may have other reasons that he wanted to go to Saudi, but my cynical part of me thinks the main reason players go to Saudi is for the money. That's the main reason. It's not because that's the pinnacle of world football right now. The pinnacle of world football is still playing in the Champions League. So
it's not an unfair assumption. Yeah.
And so if that was the bigger motivator, then what you have now is a footballer who still has the motivator of, I need to play well to get the big money. So he's still motivated to continue playing well as well.
I think you can look at the Florian Wirtz situation as well. Of course, he's extended with Leverkusen, so he'll be playing there next season and maybe make the move to a gigantic club after the 2026 World Cup. I think maybe players are a little bit more realistic about what's out there in terms of options for them at the moment. Because with Wirtz, a huge part of it, and he was never joined at the hip with Xabi Alonso, as some seem to have assumed from the outside. But the fact that Alonso will probably move on in the summer and Wirtz won't is partly dictated by market conditions. Yeah. Because if, say, he was going to make a move to like Bayern, for example, which people have thought was on the cards for years, and Bayern have certainly been very interested in him for a long time, you're looking at north of 150 million to buy him. You're looking at 20 million a year in terms of wages. They just can't afford that at the moment. And who really can afford that? There are very few clubs who can actually afford that at the moment. So Wirtz, who is managing his career in conjunction with his family very calmly and very intelligently, he's signing this new deal at Leverkusen, which gives him a lovely pay bump, probably just over half of what you would get from a mega move. But I think it's that really leans into what I was saying about the atmosphere that Xabi Alonso has created, because it's like, well, okay, well, I'm not getting my mega move now, but it's not a hardship to play here.
Yeah,
it's like
living the dream.
It's brilliant fun, and we can win stuff.